We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Welcome back to Liberty Nation Radio. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. We're joined once again by Liberty Nation's senior political analyst and longtime host of this here show, Mr. Tim Donner. Earlier in the show, we've been talking about the various hurdles that Joe Biden has to leap in order to get back to the White House for 2024 election. Now, I think for the two frontrunners, Tim, Joe Biden and the presumed frontrunner, presumed nominee, Donald J. Trump, each man's biggest hurdle is the same problem, isn't it? So for Joe Biden, his biggest hurdle is Donald Trump. For Donald Trump's biggest hurdle is Donald Trump and Donald Trump's legal issues that he's facing at the moment. What's your assessment of the situation?
Well, I have to say, I think that the effect of those 91 charges in 4 different venues is going to be neutralized to a good degree by the obvious bias in Colorado and Maine, trying to simply remove him from the ballot. I mean, except for people that are never Trumpers and believe that in a constitutional republic, it's fine to do anything you can to take someone out who you personally consider to be a danger to the republic. So what was once undeniably a major liability for Donald Trump at the beginning of this year of indictments of 2023 has turned into, apparently, incredibly, some kind of impetus for more people to support him. And what that tells me, Mark, is that there's all kinds of people supporting him on principle, because his numbers in the Republican primary suggest that there's a lot of people that switched their support to him from DeSantis or Haley or anybody else once he was indicted once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and now trying to kick him off the ballot. I think any fair-minded, impartial, open-minded American would see that as a scar on our constitutional republic, and something that's really dangerous going forward, because you know for a fact that Republicans are going to turn around if they have the chance, and they will eventually.
Yeah.
They're going to turn around and try to remove some Democrat from the ballot somewhere. I think in Texas, look, there's a move to say Joe Biden should be removed from the ballot because he's committed constitutional crimes by allowing an invasion of America.
Yeah.
Right? That's so. But Trump's, I mean, obviously the 91 charges don't ultimately accrue to his benefit when we get to the general election. I think the question is how much of an offset that will be against his normal numbers. And the polling at this point suggests that it could be about 6% of his support could be drained away if he's indicted on even one charge. And I mean, I think the only question now is whether these trials can all be pushed off to after the election, because I think you and I can agree there's no way that Donald Trump is not going to be found guilty of one or more charges.
Yeah.
So, look, we've never had this before. The only guy ever to run for office from prison was Lyndon LaRouche, which is instructive only because it does not eliminate somebody who's been indicted, convicted, or imprisoned from running for president. And yet at the same time, how many people are going to say, am I going to vote for a convicted felon? Even if I think there's so much political bias involved in these prosecutions.
Tim, in this era of narrative, which is, I really feel we're in an era where narrative is paramount to everything. And perhaps we always have been, but I'm feeling it very
particularly
much now.
false narratives,
conflicting narratives. Yeah, but there's this idea that's floating in the back of my head that if Trump is convicted, there's no way he doesn't try and frame the narrative. His team doesn't try and frame the narrative that he's another Nelson Mandela and he'll come out and he'll reunite the country. And
here's the other thing.
It's going to happen.
Well, look, we're ignoring sort of an elephant in the room, which is another thing that's going to neutralize all these charges against Trump, is the fact that people are now convinced in a majority that Joe Biden is dishonest, unethical, or downright crooked. And you know for a fact that the Republican Congress is going to keep unleashing all kinds of new evidence of Biden family crimes. I think the total right now is about $20 million in foreign cash that he and his family received. And they're going to focus on Joe Biden, not Hunter. You use Hunter as the intermediary. So that has to neutralize things a lot, because Trump can get out there and say, well, you think this is bad? Look at this influence peddling. Yeah. This is exactly why I ran for office, to get rid of this high elite crime that basically has taken over the central government, where people come in poor and leave rich, where Joe Biden, as a senator with a salary of what, 300,000, owns, 4 homes, maybe 5. I mean, this is the kind of thing that Trump ran against. And now he's got Exhibit A, doesn't he?
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, that the 2016 Donald Trump slogans are about to be revitalized in such a way, but with a fresh new sheen to them. So drain the swamp. I mean, he doesn't have them, but the Republicans in Congress are exposing the Biden family money trail. Whether that leads to a crime or not, I don't know yet. But they're exposing this money trail that certainly raises questions. So Donald Trump's old phrase of drain the swamp, I mean, that's as relevant today as it was, if not more so. And build the wall with the greatest number of immigrants crossing into the country.
All the issues. All
build the wall, drain the swamp. It's all coming. Lock her up. That's the only one we're missing, right?
Lock him up, and it'll be empty the swamp instead of drain the swamp, because there's no question he'll make major executive branch reforms, and the civil service is shaking in their boots, because he's going to populate it with more of his kind of people instead of faceless autocrats, not autocrats, sorry, bureaucrats. You know, faceless functionaries that make major decisions without having to suffer any consequences for it. So there's no question that's going to happen. But all the issues, from foreign policy to the economy to crime to the border, everything, including outright official corruption in the form of obvious influence peddling with hard evidence. In other words, there's hard evidence that they have on this. It's not speculative. It's hard evidence. And I think it's going to put any sheen, it's going to wipe out any sheen that Biden may have for being a good guy, right? Who's just trying to stabilize the country.
It seems to me that Joe Biden has to try and replace his empathetic good guy image with something. What do you think that will be, Tim?
It's not possible, because he's too old to change, and he's too addled to be able to even sell his own program. So to ask him to try and be something he's never been when he's so far over the hill, unrealistic.
Tim Donner, thanks ever so much for being with us on today's special edition of Liberty Nation Radio.
Always a pleasure, Mark.
And that's about all we have time for on this week's edition of Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network. I've been your host, Mark Angelides. I'd like to take a moment to thank our special guest for this show, longtime host of this here radio show, Mr. Tim Donner. And of course, thank the listeners, you guys out there, for tuning in each and every week. We appreciate you. I'll leave you with one final thought, courtesy of C.S. Lewis, who said, "The door to hell is locked from the inside." And I think it's worth remembering that all too often we put ourselves in the positions of difficulty that we find, and that's never more true than for our current crop of politicians. Thanks for listening. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are libertynation.com.